Okay, Alexandra, let's do an update as to the situation in Kazakhstan. And let me just read you a title here from Sputnik. And the title says Maidan technologies used in Kazakhstan, Putin says, as country faced threat to its statehood. That is quite a title and quite a statement from Putin. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
it is a statement from Putin. Now, what it means, because of course he's alluding to the Maidan events in Ukraine, the seizure of power by people who had been protesting on Maidan Square. The people, in other words, in Maidan Square, who were receiving all those cookies from Victoria Nuland and who were backed by the United States and by the European Union. So when Putin comes along and says that, and he says that at a meeting of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, that's Russia's military alliance, what he's in effect saying is that the United States and the European Union, at least the Western powers, were directly involved and implicated in this affair. So that is a pretty strong statement. Now, the Chinese have also been saying much the same, and the Kazakhs increasingly are saying much the same. And in fact, it's becoming increasingly clear that it was something like that. This is a highly organized operation. It was prepared, clearly prepared in advance. Somebody was looking for an opportunity to launch what was clearly, in effect, a coup attempt, and they triggered it directly after these protests took place over the LPG price increases. But it's important to say that this coup attempt was clearly distinct and separate from those protests over the LPG price increases. And it's also clear, and here again, I must say this, we were far ahead of the field on this one. It's also clear that there were divisions within the Kazakh government between the former president Nazarbayev and the current president Tokayev. This has been now widely accepted and commented upon across the media. We were the first people on the Duran to mention it. We said it first. We were absolutely right. And it now turns out that lots of people associated with Nazarbayev himself in the security services, they were clearly working in collusion with this attempt at some kind of a coup. And the particular event that apparently has caused major concern was that in the city, Almaty, which was the epicenter of the protests, the security cordon around the airport was withdrawn 45 minutes before the airport was stormed, and this was clearly done with a view to preventing military intervention by Russia. In other words, Russian paratroopers, Russian military landing at the airport in order to reinforce the police and security services struggling to regain control of the situation in Almaty. And we're seeing a thorough purge of people in the security services who clearly, or at least so the Russians believe, have been compromised. That, by the way, replicates much of what happened in Maidan, in the Maidan events in February 2014. And it's quite clear that this time the Russians and the Kazakh government have taken firm control of the situation.
Okay, so things are under control now in Kazakhstan. The coup has failed.
Yeah.
We can say
The
that.
coup has,
We can
the
say
coup has
that conclusively.
the coup has conclusively failed. There are holdouts. There are still some people trying to resist, but they're becoming increasingly isolated, and it seems increasing numbers of them are being rounded up. And, when I say increasing numbers, the last figure I saw was 4,000, but it's likely that we're going to hear that it's going to go much higher than this. So there's a major roundup of people underway, and a purge of people within the government and the security services. And the former president has clearly been marginalised, and the capital of the country, which used to be called, which he renamed Nur Sultan after his first name, though it still formally goes by that name. I understand that the officials across the country have been instructed to start referring to it again as Astana, which simply means capital city in the Kazakh language. So there is a purge underway, there's a roundup underway, but the coup has conclusively failed.
Okay, so this is a big win for Russia, I
Yeah.
think. I mean,
It's a massive win.
it shows that it's a massive win. They've learned their lessons from Maidan, and we've criticized the Russian action in Ukraine because we always said that Russia had many years, including a previous coup, to understand what was brewing in Ukraine before the Maidan happened, and for some reason, it broke down, and
Yes.
and the Maidan revolution happened
Yes.
without the Russians getting a handle on it.
Yes.
But it looks like the Russians have understood now what's at play and what's going on, and they've understood these regime change operations. They're quick to act. They're effective. But even more important than that, they've secured a key country in their region, and China has secured a key piece to their One Belt One Road initiative as well. I mean, this is central to the story, in that Kazakhstan was very important for both Russia and China in a geopolitical sense.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's the pivotal state in Central Asia. It's the one which is far and away the richest in natural resources. It's got a significant industrial base. It's got a large Russian population. And of course, it's the place which borders on China, on that western province where there's been all kinds of problems, the western province of China, which I'm not naming because of concerns that our friends might, be worried if we did name it. And of course, don't forget also that it's also the place where the big Russian spaceport, the Cosmodrome, Baikonur, is located. This is absolutely, obviously, the key part of the Russian space program. That's where they launch their manned space vehicles, their satellites, all of those things. They are building a replacement Cosmodrome, as they call it, in eastern Russia, but they're still far from ready. They're still very heavily reliant on Baikonur, and they've consolidated control of it. So, as I said, the Russians acted fast and decisively to put a stamp on this thing, and many people believe that they must have had some intelligence of something of what was brewing. I would add that the other thing they've done, and this is a big contrast with Ukraine, is that they've made sure that people who they could rely upon and work with were inserted into senior positions within the Kazakh government. One of the great problems the Russians faced in Ukraine was because they had neglected Ukraine. They hadn't taken any real steps to safeguard their positions in Ukraine. At the time of the crisis in 2014, they had no reliable allies within the Ukrainian government and within the Ukrainian political structures. The president of that time, Viktor Yanukovych, though not exactly hostile to Russia, wasn't particularly friendly to Russia either. On the contrary, it was Biden, who was then vice president, that he was talking to practically every day, not Putin. Well, this time, the Russians have acted differently. I've been reading up on Tokayev, the current president, and it turns out that he's a former diplomat. He trained in Moscow. He served in the Soviet Foreign Ministry for many years. He speaks Mandarin and Russian. He was actually in the Soviet embassy in Beijing at the time of the Tiananmen incident in 1989. He then, after the Soviet Union collapsed, worked in the Russian Foreign Ministry as a diplomat for a long time, until eventually he moved to Kazakhstan. Now, I have a feeling that what actually happened was that the Russians probably pressed Nazarbayev to take this man in, precisely because they wanted people like that in the Kazakh government, somebody who has connections to Russia. And when Nazarbayev resigned and retired unexpectedly, Tokayev obviously took over. And the fact that he has all these contacts and connections with Russia, I don't think is an accident. I don't want to suggest that he's Moscow's man in Kazakhstan. I think that is unfair. But certainly he's someone who's much closer to the Russians than Nazarbayev had become towards the end of his time as leader of Kazakhstan. So they had somebody they could rely upon within the government, somebody they could work with, and they had other people, other senior officials connected to Tokayev that they could work with as well. And that's, again, a major difference from what happened in Ukraine.
No, I think you actually said it all by mentioning that he's from the Soviet system. He studied in Russia. He speaks Russian, obviously. He was based in Beijing. He speaks Russian and Mandarin.
And Mandarin.
I mean,
well,
I think you understand exactly.
Exactly. He studied in Moscow.
What's going on here? Yeah.
Exactly. He studied in Moscow. So he's somebody who, as I said, I don't want to suggest he's not a patriot, a Kazakh patriot, but he is somebody whose connections are with the Russians and the Chinese, not with the West. By the way, the other thing about him, and even the Financial Times has admitted it, is that he is not corrupt. Apparently, he has no known business interests, which in this part of the world is remarkable. But of course, the fact that he's not corrupt also means that he's not bribable, and that what weakens the political systems in these countries, it was also true of Ukraine, by the way, is not just that people who are corrupt are compromised, and compromised in the eyes of the people as well. But of course, when they're corrupt, they're bribable. Somebody who's not corrupt has that quality of authority, which corrupt people don't, but he's also not bribable. And that, as I said, puts him in a stronger position than perhaps some other people in Kazakhstan would be. And it would mean that people who come with large suitcases of money are turned away.
Yeah. So, this was a poorly executed, poorly timed regime change attempt, but also on the other side, it was a poorly executed anti-regime change operation on the Russian side. So, I mean, once again, you see like the Russians kind of used the United States or the interagency, whoever was behind this, they used their own weight against them, and now they've got a better hold of Kazakhstan. Now.
Absolutely.
I mean, they have a much firmer grip of
a much
Kazakhstan. Yeah. Real quick, just to wrap up the video, you mentioned corruption, and so I can't help but mention the photographs that are all over the place now with regards to Kazakhstan, and who else but Hunter Biden, because you brought up Biden, Biden and Yanukovych. And many people don't report to the fact that Biden was very close to Yanukovych as well. So they always say that Yanukovych was Russia's guy. There just shows how little they know. But Hunter Biden was, this is from the Daily Mail, and this was an article that the Daily Mail ran, during the whole laptop incident. And they unearthed messages with Hunter Biden and the person that has now been arrested for treason in Kazakhstan, Mr. Masimov.
Absolutely, Mr. Masimov, Karim Masimov.
Yes.
That is exactly
he has been arrested. And Hunter Biden, in the laptop, was referred to be very close friends. The laptop from hell is what the Daily Mail calls it. That's a quote. Very good friends. And according to anti-corruption campaigners in Kazakhstan, Hunter was working as a go-between with a friend of Masimov's, an oligarch type named Rakishev, from 2012 until 2014. And they actually were closing deals in the U.S. as well. $1 million was invested via Rakishev to a politically connected filmmaker who happens to be a family member of John Kerry's. I believe it was his niece, if I'm not mistaken, and she was putting together a film, and Hunter Biden found $1 million via Kazakhstan, and these guys. Anyway, the photos are everywhere now. It's Biden with Masimov and Rakishev and Hunter and Joe are with them, and they're wheeling and dealing in Kazakhstan. Coincidence, Alexander, or what?
Well, of course it's not a coincidence. I mean, you think it's a coincidence? I have a bridge to sell you. Is the answer I can give. When Putin talks about similarities with Ukraine and with Maidan, well, there you have them. It's the same people, all the same people. Both the people working behind the scenes, trying to organise this thing. And you also have the carpetbaggers coming in to sort of scoop up and walk away with lots of money. I mean, this obviously happens. And of course, the reason we know about what Hunter gets up to is because of his political prominence. But of course, there's lots of other people involved. By the way, important point to make is that, of course, the Kazakh oil industry is controlled by big American oil companies. The previous government froze the Russians completely out. Why do you think that happened? Well, it's because the Americans came with the suitcases. That's the simple explanation. There is no other. I mean, it's as straightforward and as obvious as that. And that, of course, means that the entire Kazakh political structure was riddled with people like this, especially at the higher levels. Trouble is, they're now going to all be cleaned out, and that's what we're going to see. So there is no coincidence. The fact that people are there, the fact that Hunter Biden was there, that is. I mean, I'm not suggesting he played any active role in this, obviously not. But it shows you the kind of things that have been going on in Kazakhstan and for a very long time.
Yeah, you have the regime change, the diplomacy, the regime change, the color revolution, and then after that's done, Hunter Biden kind of strolls in there and starts making deals. I mean, that's the model.
Exactly. And can I just say something, by the way? I mean, the thing to say about this is, of course, the money to be made in Kazakhstan potentially would have been on another level to the money to be made in Ukraine, because Kazakhstan is very, very rich in natural resources. So the opportunities for picking goodies are just almost beyond imagination. Bear in mind, they could have presumably even Baikonur with all its equipment and facilities could have been probably picked over very, very effectively. So, I mean, it would be a magnet drawing people like that. But as I said, it's not going to happen, and they're all going to be, no doubt, very annoyed about this. I should say I'm becoming increasingly convinced that another major player in these events was Turkey, or to be more precise, Erdogan. There is now clear evidence that Erdogan has been promoting in Kazakhstan this Turkic union type policy, and that he seems to have been connected with some of the political groups or organizations that were involved in this coup attempt. And it's also, I think, fairly clear to me that some of the people who were involved, there's now reports that they spoke Arabic, that they people of jihadi views, and the most obvious and logical place for them to have come from was Turkey. So I think Erdogan has miscalculated massively. I think on this issue, the Russians will not just be angry, the Chinese will be angry even more, because it's incredibly sensitive for them. And I strongly suspect that this Turkic union that Erdogan has been playing with in Central Asia, I suspect that over the next few years, it will completely unravel.
Yeah, Erdogan is running Turkey into the ground.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's just no more friends left.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, the Russians will be angry. But, there's always been that weakness in Russian policy towards Turkey. The Chinese will be furious. I mean, they will be.
The U.S.
and
doesn't want to deal with him either.
No, nobody does. But the Chinese, who have bailed him out in the past and who have the money to bail him out again, they will be absolutely furious about this. I mean, they have been even more outspoken about the events in Kazakhstan than the Russians have been. And I discussed on my program, there was this extraordinary message of support that Xi Jinping sent to Tokayev, making it absolutely clear who they were backing in this affair, because, as you absolutely rightly said, Kazakhstan is pivotal to the Belt and Road Initiative, and of course, as it borders on that region of Western China, for China it is a very, very sensitive security area. So if Erdogan was involved, and I am almost certain that he was, then, as I said, the Chinese will be very, very angry with him.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens with Erdogan as he continues to miscalculate in all places. Anyway, all right, we'll leave it there at the Duran.locals.com, and look for us on Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, and Super U as well. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY, as it is written on
as it is
that
written.
mug right there. All right, take care.